Good morning, students. Today we are going to start with the chapter number 6, that is of social science, chapter number 6, effects of the British rule in India. It's a very interesting chapter for all of us because we need to know how the effects were there when the Britishers were ruling in India. Students, please take your textbooks in your hand so that you can know some because I have given you the pictures inserted in the presentation over here, the pictures of the textbook inserted in that, so it will be little bit smaller. So if you take your textbook in your hand, it will be more good for you and the writings will be legible for you all. Now starting from the very first, that is, Aruna was reading the newspaper in the morning while her daughter Purva was sitting beside her and doing her homework. Aruna read loudly, "Revolution in Libya." Hearing this, Purva asked, "Why do people revolt?" Aruna answered, "When the needs of the people are not satisfied, the people face economic crisis and they revolt. In our country also, during the British rule, the condition of the people was very bad and resulted in a revolt. Let me tell you about the life of the Indians at that time." So these people were just giving a self-introduction basically of the Britishers, that how they were ruling and for the British rules and how the British rule were in India. India was economically prosperous till 18th century. The anarchy that followed the death of the Aurangzeb too could not weaken it. It had been admitted by historians across the world that the industries, production techniques and the organization of trade in India were unmatched at that time. The same country, India, became poor and bankrupt during the nearly 200 years of the British rule. It became the country that supplied raw material to the factories in England and offered a large market for the finished products of the factories in England. So till 18th century, India was totally a good prosperous country and economically prosperous country, so we were having a lot of funds enough. But after the Britishers came into India, after the entry of the British rule in India, many Indians became poor and totally they were bankrupt. That means they were not having any money, right? The whole amount was just gone like that. So basically it was a very tough time for the Indians, and nearly the 200 years of the British rule in India, what they have suffered for. So we'll just see the first topic over here, that is the condition of the peasants in agriculture during the British rule. Now what do you mean by peasants? Peasants means a small agricultural farmer, right? A small farmer, we can tell it. So the British got a new opportunity to increase the income after the acquisition of the Diwani rights, that is the right to collect land revenues, of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. They started exploiting peasants to earn more revenue, and as a result the peasants became poorer. So now they started exploiting, the Britishers started exploiting the farmers to collect the more revenue from them, and day by day the farmers became more poorer. A large number of peasants had to borrow money from the moneylenders and consequently fell into a debt trap. So many people, farmers, they have to take loan from others because in order to pay all the revenue taxes, for them it was not able because they cannot earn that much money. Farmers lost their land and agriculture suffered in many regions of India. Moreover, Bengal witnessed a terrible famine in the year 1770 CE, in which lakhs of people died of starvation. Yes, my dear students, we all know the famine of Bengal. It was one of the largest famine ever. That is known as in Indian history, the Bengal famine in 1770 CE. So that was many people died of starvation. That means they were not having any food to eat, neither there was any water proper because rains were not there and there were the famine everywhere. As you have seen in the earlier chapters, the famine and the earthquakes and destructions. Yes, so famine everywhere. The Bengal famine had created a very big havoc in the Indian history. The governor General Lord Cornwallis enforced Parliament Settlement Act in order to collect the revenue. Now he has enforced the Permanent Settlement Act in order to collect revenue. As per this act, the company fixed the revenue on an annual basis. The zamindar, that is we call it as a landlords, were given the permanent rights of land and revenue collection. This is how a class of landlords loyal to the company was created. This act also ensured the income of the company. Against this, the peasants who worked hard in the hot sun to cultivate the land and crops were exploited. So, the Governor General, the Lord Cornwallis, enforced the Permanent Settlement Act. He had collected now, as per this act, what was the main aim? That is, the company fixed the revenue. The company has already fixed that this much tax or this much has to be paid from the farmers, and the zamindars, the landlords, were given the permanent rights for the land and revenue collection. So they were given the permanent rights. That means this much amount that was fixed to take the amount from the peasants, right? From the and the landlords were given the permanent rights. That is that much of the specific amount you can take it from them. So that was one of the big drawback of the peasants, the small farmers, because they were not having that much enough of money. And against this, the farmers who had worked hard in the hot sun, because we all know the farmers are working very much hard and for the cultivation of the land. What we are eating, only this is because the farmers have cultivated it. But if they are only being exploited, then it's a very big question mark to us. Think of it, my dear students, that if the farmers are not able to grow the crops, can we eat a proper food? Yes, that will be a very good question mark for us. And this year also, the lot of rains have due to the heavy rains, many regions have been washed away, and so many crops have been destroyed. So we should that is the very biggest thing ever. So here also, the peasants, the small farmers are working in the hot sun, but if the collection of the revenue, the taxes are being paid forcibly, the farmers are being told to pay the taxes, then definitely the farmers who are working in the hot sun, they will be having a small income. There will be no income for them, and so there will be totally specifically we can say it that the farmers will be totally ruined, right? Then we can just have a look over it. Now after this, what would be an effect on the social life? Yes, what will be the effect on the social life? That is, Warren Hastings, if you see the figure, the picture over here, he's the Warren Hastings. The person who was given the job of collecting the revenue was known as a collector. He also performed the function of a judge. The British system of the administration destroyed our ancient system of self-rule. In the ancient times, every village was like a small republic. Gram panchayats handled the administration of the entire village. These panchayats were like the backbone of the self-rule in our country. This institution of local self-rule stood their ground even during the time of foreign invasions and the Sultanate period, but were destroyed due to the administrative policies of the British. That we all know, the Warren Hastings was the person who was having the designation of collecting the revenue, that is who was known as the collector, right? And he also performed the function of a judge, that means who is handling all the responsibilities of the revenue department, right? And the British system of the administration destroyed our ancient system, because whenever the Britishers came, they have destroyed all the old traditions and systems which were having earlier, right? And so the earlier systems like the Gram Panchayats used to handle the administration for the entire village. Now the panchayats, basically these panchayats were the backbone of the country, right? And this social the institutions of the local self stood the ground even during the times of the foreign invasions and during the Sultanate period. That means very much earlier, during the very later century it was. But the Britishers who came, they have devastated everything, because they wanted a new system, a modern system to invent it and then to work on it. So basically the Britishers came and these systems were totally being they have just made the systems in a very systematically way, the new systems which were formed in a very systematically way. So the creation of the old systems, right, the ancient systems, were totally being decreased. Yes, so they were not following that systems. The policy of social reforms by the company made people feel insecure and suspicious. They felt that the government was trying to convert them to Christianity and destroy the Indian culture and religion forever, because the Britishers people were Christians, and so they were very much in fear that this people, they were having they were feeling insecure, and they were fear also, have a lot of fear that these Britishers who came from the British, are they going to trying to convert them to us into Christianity, or are they going to destroy the Indian culture or the religion forever? So the people were having a lot of questions brooding upon their minds. They were brooding that they were thinking that, and they were feeling insecure that what to do it now. People believed that the Indian social system was deliberately undermined in the railways and military. An order was passed in Agra that every Indian had to salute the British. If it was not done, it was considered a crime and was liable for punishment. Yeah, so one order was passed in the Agra that every Indian has to salute the British, because at that time the British rule was there, and so the Indian had to salute the British. And so what happened? As a result, there was a widespread of the sentiment of the anger and hatred for the British among the Indians. So for each and everything, the people, an order was passed for the Agra that every Indian has to salute the British. So the Indians were not liking this, that this is not a tradition that if he is a Britisher, then we have to salute to the Britisher, even though the Indians are having a good position. That was not properly. So the Indians was feeling very much insecure about this. So this was the thing that affects, there was an effect of the social life, because the Indian people were losing their own customs and traditions because of the British rule in India. Now we can just see the destruction, what type of destruction they did among the trade and industries, right? There is a destruction of Indian trade and industries. The handlooms of India supplied textile to the markets of Asia and Europe. The traders from the European countries used to come to India to purchase commodities. That means the traders from European countries, they used to come to India for the purchasing the commodities, and the Indian commodities like jute, silk, woolen and cotton textiles were in high demand in the European markets. So these types of commodities, they used to come and purchase this from the Indian markets, because they were knowing that this quality of this type of different types of carvation among of the Indian products, right? Basically, whether it can be of jute, whether it can be silk, woolen and cotton textiles, it won't be able to see there over in the foreign or in the British. So they used to come, the European used to come, the traders used to come, and they used to purchase it. The soft and the delicate muslin of Dhaka was world famous. Apart from textiles, commodities such as saltpeter, sugar were exported in the exchange of tremendous amount of bullion, gold and silver. So there was a tremendous, we all know in the chapter number 1 also, I think so, we have just learned about that, that Indians, they were, the Europeans came to India and they were exporting such different types of Indian commodities, right? That is a jute, silk, woolen and different types. Muslin also, the delicate muslin. Muslin is a type of cloth, right? Of Dhaka was the famous, and we all know that basically these commodities were being exported, right? This type of, that is different textile commodities were also, such as that is salt and saltpeter and sugar. Saltpeter is basically a salty tasting powder for we can see that just a powder just for the preservation of commodities, right? It to preserve it something, that a small white powder is coming there. So that is the saltpeter and sugar were exported in the exchange of the tremendous amount of bullion, that is of gold and silver. That means we can say that they were exchanging of the goods and services, that barter system was taking place at that point of time. The whole scenario changed as the British rule was implemented. We all know that whenever the British rule was implemented, the whole scenario it changed a lot. The follow of bullion, gold and silver got reversed. In the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, the British took 500 crore rupees per today's standard only from Bengal during their rule. Just imagine the wealth the British would have accumulated from the whole country. Think to know that it's not surprising today to talk about the lakhs and crores of rupees. We all know that the whole scenario, when you convert the rupees into a pound or a dollar or a European, we can say that definitely it will be far more, the currency will be far more, right? If you are earning from a foreign country like London or the different European countries, and then converting that amount of money into an Indian rupees, definitely it will be of more, you may earn more money over here, because if you convert into Indian rupees, definitely that amount of cash will be more. So this thing was totally was changed. The whole scenario the Britishers has changed, and they had implemented that whole scenario by bringing this industrial revolution, the new industrial revolution, because with the different techniques, the modern techniques which they have invented, they wanted all these things, the new invention of techniques into an Indian, right? They wanted all these different types of the modern techniques to follow into the industrial revolution in India. So the old industrial revolution which India was already prevailing for it, they were not liking that technique, so they thought of just agreed the techniques of the previously Indian markets. So with the help of the raw materials produced in India and money collected from India, the business and industries in the England prospered. Their mills started progressing. The cloth manufactured in England was imported in India without laying any duty on it, whereas there were taxes up to 80% on the cloth manufactured in India. You can just see whenever the British rule was there now in India, so the importing, they were having a lot of amount of cloth, because you can just see over here that the raw materials were being some basic fine cloth were also being imported. The cloth manufactured, which was manufactured, that means it was the cloth which is being made in England was imported in India without laying any duty. That means if that cloth is coming to India, the import duty was not paid, because the Britishers' rule were there in India. But if we want to export the Indian made cloth to England, we have to pay 80% tax. So that is one of the big question mark, and that was one of the greatest denying thing for Indians, that how it is possible, that this is not a proper thing, that the Indians have to pay a lot of amount of taxes, and if they are importing to us, they are having a free of charge, that none of the tax is being paid for them. So that was one of the basic denial for the Indians, because they cannot see all such things, but they were helpless as they were under the British rule. And as a result, the textile made in India became costlier in the Indian market itself. The Indian handicraft and cottage industries could not withstand the competition, and they could not sustain themselves. Many skill-based industries of our country, like textile industry, glass, paper, mineral, shipbuilding, got ruined due to the policies of British. Lakhs of skilled workers become unemployed. Gradually, the poor workers of the rural areas of India became poorer. Right? So basically, whenever taxes were being paid high, the India could not stand on the competition because they were not having enough funds, and many skill-based industries, likewise for whether it can be of glass or paper or mineral or shipbuilding, they totally got ruined under the British rule. And the lack of the skilled workers, that means those who are very much workers who are very much skilled in fine, that means who are doing the diamond jewelry, and the small beads, if they are piercing on it on the diamond jewelry, they are called as skilled workers. So many skilled workers were unemployed, and in the rural areas the poorer become the poorer. This was only because of the British rule, because they wanted all the new invention and technologies to come, and these skilled workers had faced a lot of amount of unemployment, because the many people were being without the jobs during their British rule. So that was one of the greatest part in the Indian history when the British has ruled over in India, and especially to the farmers and the small workers, because they were not able to earn properly during the British rule. Now we can see that how the suspicion, what were the reforms at that point of time, and who were the people to bring out some reforms to have a little bit of beneficial for India. That is, you can just see over here in the picture, there is Lord Macaulay and William Bentinck, right? When William Bentinck came to India, liberal thinking was getting its stronghold in England. This way of thinking slowly reached India. The Britishers rulers started taking the interest in the lives of the people of India. Lord William Bentinck became quite popular in India by introducing few beneficial reforms. During his time, Indians started getting jobs in the company administration. Right? When he came, when he brought some reforms in India, I told you that India was beneficial by William Bentinck when he came to India, because he made some reforms that was benefited to India. During his time, the India started getting jobs. So at that moment, the people were now engaged in the employment sector in the company administration. Indians were allowed to use their mother tongue in the court of law. Raja Ram Mohan Roy and other social reformers were constantly making efforts to stop the evil practice of sati. Bentinck agreed to these efforts and passed a law in 1829 to ban the practice of sati. Now we all know that Lord William Bentinck came, and how he has given the jobs to Indians in the company administration, and how he allowed to use the mother tongue in the court of law. Whereas Raja Ram Mohan Roy were the other social reformers also there, and they also tried to stop the evil practice of sati. Then, during the time of William Bentinck, the English rulers tried to eradicate the social evils as per the will of the social reformers. The orthodox class witnessed these reforms with the suspicion. The previous evil beliefs, the social traditions and practices which was there, they totally they disagreed upon these things which were being done in India. So basically there were the evil practices which had been followed over it, there were totally ban of this, right? So basically it was one of the greatest thing when the Raja Ram Mohan Roy also were constantly making efforts. They were making the constantly efforts for the evil practice of sati. We all know that the evil practice of sati, right? A practice in India where that is where basically this is the evil practices we all know different evil practices were there, the Dutpiti and the different types of the practices, the evil beliefs which were totally in an orthodox type, right? So that was not proper for the people. So the William Bentinck came and he eradicated all these practices. The company had passed a resolution to spend 1 lakh rupees every year on education, but it was not implemented. He also gave that every year if you just spend 1 lakh for education, that is one of the best finest thing, that the students, the small children could get a good quality of education, and when they get a good quality of education, they may prosper in their lives for getting a proper job, right? But finally, an education committee was formed during the time of Bentinck. In the year 1834, Lord Macaulay thought of introducing English education in India. So basically in the year 1834, he thought that if you introduce the English education, the people will be formally be fluent in English, and also if the communication is in English, that will be one of the finest things to make the people understand the English language and also the English education in India, right? And to explore it. So whenever you want to go out, whenever you go for the foreign countries or different parts of the countries of the world, you may be able to converse yourself in English, because English language is such a language that you can go and speak everywhere when in any parts of the countries of the world, depending upon their local language. But English is the main language, so they thought of introducing the English education. The Lord Macaulay thought of introducing the English education in India, and however the educational method advocated by the Macaulay could not benefit the youth. Indians lost the advantage of acquiring the ancient knowledge and skills developed by the ancestors. So what the ancient knowledge were there, they lost this thing because the Britishers were handling themselves their type of education and that their type of the literacy level for them. The method of British education system was opposed by a number of intellectuals, and Mahatma Gandhi called it as to give millions a knowledge of English is to enslave them, that by receiving English education we have enslaved the nation. Yes, we all know that at a certain level English education is good, but not in all the fields, because we need to follow our own traditions, we need to follow our ancient traditions and all our ancient languages. That is one of the basic thing. For India, the Sanskrit language, the Purans and the Granths, that was one of the basic thing the people were learning about it. The different types, universities were there, Nalanda University, many more universities were there, where the totally scriptures, it was based on the scriptures, and where the Sanskrit language they used to work on it. So with the coming of the Britishers, the English education became one of the most important aspect for it. So the Gandhiji, Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation, he was not able to see this, and so he has given such a beautiful word that to give millions a knowledge of English is to enslave them. That means to just only to give the English education is not proper. They have to follow their own values of Indian traditions, right? So thereby receiving English education, we have enslaved the nation. That means we have given our own nation into the hands of the Britishers, right? So he was very much tensed that if this was possible, then our Indians would never ever believe or follow our own traditions and customs. Later 3 universities were established in 1857, and the Britishers could get educate workforce due to the introduction of English education. Alongside, it will also develop a nationalistic thinking among the educated Indians. So this was about the reforms, how both Lord Macaulay and William Bentinck came and made some of the introductory reforms that was beneficial to India, and some English education was beneficial for the people of Indians. But as per the view of Mahatma Gandhi, he was also not wrong. He was totally correct that if it would be in English, and we would definitely follow our own traditions of the ancient times which we have been given through our ancestors. So basically that was one of the thing which we need to think it, but Mahatma Gandhi didn't like this, what they had done it. Now we'll just see that how different types, the different inventions of transportation and communication facilities and the spread of English educations, how it was being spread it among themselves. Many machines were invented to facilitate the industries, transport and communication. Considering the convenience in the running administration and strategic importance of the military, the Britishers introduced the railways in India, and that we all know. My dear students, I have already given you that the railways were introduced in India in the year 1853 CE, and it was run between Mumbai and Thane, right? The first train was run between Mumbai and Thane in the year 1853, right? So in order to maintain an effective control on the country and to exchange messages with neighboring territories, modern methods of post and telegraphs were introduced in 1854 CE. Different territories, in order to exchange the messages, in order to pass out the messages, post and telegraph. Nowadays we don't have that. Post we have definitely, but telegraph facilities, it has been shortened a lot, because now the email facilities, the modern communication facilities have come. Email, so within a second the mail has been sent to that person, the message has been sent to that person, and you can just recover it, right? So now the modern technologies, due to the invention of the modern technologies, the world has become a technological world. But previously, with the introduction of such communication facilities, like introduction of the post and the telegraph, they used to communicate with that mode of communication with the neighboring countries. Modern methods of the post and telegraph were introduced in India in 1854 CE. Printing press and circulation of newspapers grew alongside. So also with the communication, the printing station and press and the circulation of the newspaper also started, because the languages of which we got the news, that also started coming in English as well as Hindi and Gujarati, and so different types of languages. The bilanguage language was also being given. The newspapers were also being printed in the bilingual languages. So that was one of the basic good thing for us with the invention of the printing press. These reforms were actually for the convenience of the British rule in India, but it turned out to be a blessing in the disguise for the growth of nationalism in India. Yes, so actually it was one of the good thing it was a good convenience for the Britishers to, when they were ruling India, it was a good convenience for them, but it had benefited India also, because that was one of the good thing. The class that acquired the English education headed the social reforms and nationalism in India, since they were more familiar with the contemporary developments in the world around. The post and the telegraph brought people closer. So I told you the different communication facilities the people were owing. They both owed the people together, because with the communication, with the technological inventions, the people now can be closely, they can know, they can talk with each other with the different communication techniques. Previously no more the touchscreen mobile phones were there, just only they were communicating with the post and the telegraph facilities. But that was one of the biggest thing to at that time of invention for India, right? So in this chapter, my dear students, we have already learned about the different things which was beneficial also for us, but basically it was the whole British who had taken the charge of India, because it was in the British rule effect. What were the effects which the Indians and the small farmers had faced? This chapter is basically based on that only, that what effects the farmers, the small farmers and the skilled workers and the Indians were facing at the time of British rule India. But some reformers are there, they had beneficial to the people of India, especially the different like William Bentinck and Lord Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Lord Macaulay. These people were there. They have also made some beneficial to the Indians. So this was one of the good thing over here. I'm also giving. So thank you very much, my dear students. Write nicely in the workbook. I've given you the pictures over here. So write it neat and clean, and stay home, stay safe.